Blackwater is a private security company and they have a negative impact on our economy. They provide a valuable service, but the cost is just too great. Here you can see that in recent years, our government has spent almost $600 million on Blackwater contracts, and recently they've dedicated more than $30 million to be spent on them. A Blackwater contractor is much more expensive to maintain in Iraq than just a U.S. soldier would be. Here you can see all of the various expenses we're paying just for one day and one contractor. These security contractors are being hugely relied on by the U.S. As you can see, they make up over half of our employees in Afghanistan, exactly half in Balkans, and a little less than half in Iraq. This ratio is extremely disturbing, and it's never been this high in past wars. Here you can see the various services that our contractors are providing. Most of them are doing base support, a lot are in security, and many are translators or interpreters, but they also do logistics, construction, transportation, and training for various people. Blackwater is currently a monopoly in its industry, which is a reason why it is hurting our economy. Firms that could perform the job needed for cheaper just can't handle the contracts due to a lack of preparation, and they just can't afford to do it. Here's a video helping describe that.
The State Department's last Iraq contract with the company's aviation subsidiary to provide diplomats with helicopter security was due to expire on Thursday. But that contract has been temporarily extended because the firm taking over the contract is not ready to replace Blackwater. Blackwater has earned more than $1 billion in contracts awarded under the Bush administration, but a spokesman for Zeiss.
Blackwater contractors often operate above the U.S. law and above the laws of where they operate, and they are ruining the industry for honest companies that we should be relying on, as you can see in this video.
One of the most frightening developments in the occupation of Iraq and the so-called war on terror is actually something that most people have never heard of. In addition to the 150,000 troops that the U.S. has on the ground in Iraq, the Bush administration has deployed a shadow army of some 100,000 contractors. Of these, tens of thousands are heavily armed mercenaries that roam Iraq with impunity. Among the most powerful of the companies operating in Iraq is Blackwater USA, a secretive company based in the wilderness of North Carolina. It's headed by a right-wing, Christian conservative bankroller of President Bush and his allies, and Blackwater envisions itself as the FedEx of the national security apparatus. But the reality is that Blackwater has become a prime player in the war on terror, and nothing short of the Bush administration's Praetorian Guard. Blackwater USA largely operated in the shadows of the U.S. war machine until the morning of March 31st, 2004, when 4 Blackwater contractors were ambushed and killed in the Sunni city of Fallujah, Iraq. Their bodies were burned and dragged through the streets, 2 of them hung from a bridge over the Euphrates River. For most people, it was the first that they've ever heard of private military contractors operating in Iraq. That was the Mogadishu moment of the Iraq War. In many ways, it was the day the war turned. Unlike Somalia, when the Clinton administration pulled out, the Bush administration initiated a massive revenge attack. They laid siege to the city of Fallujah, killed hundreds of people, displaced tens of thousands of others, and in the process inflamed the Iraqi resistance that haunts U.S. occupation forces to this day.
The Cold War's over, but the world is still getting colder. Atlas walking through the projects with the hood on my shoulder.
The Bush administration came to power with a radical privatization agenda. We see it in our schools, prisons, healthcare system, and law enforcement in the United States. The occupation of Iraq and the war on terror had brought the greatest privatization of warfare in modern history. Blackwater USA has become one of the most powerful private actors in the so-called war on terror. It provides the Bush administration with an extraordinary amount of political cover. The deaths of Blackwater contractors and other war contractors are not included in the total death count, even though some 780 of them have been killed in Iraq. Their injuries don't get calculated either. Their crimes don't get punished. What you have is a revolving door. Blackwater and other companies benefit the Bush administration, and in turn, the Bush administration and its Republican allies in Congress have shielded these military contractors from any effective oversight, any effective accountability, any effective legal system. Their operations are shrouded in secrecy, and people in Congress find it almost impossible to get information about Blackwater and other companies' operations.
And we know virtually nothing about this. We think about 40 cents of every dollar goes to private military contractors. We think about 800 of them have been killed in Iraq, but we don't know that. They're not even counted. And we think there's about 25,000 to maybe 40,000 engaged in military activities, in combat-related activities, but we don't know, and we can't find out.
Blackwater USA has 2,300 men actively deployed in 9 countries around the world. They have an additional 20,000 contractors at the ready. But while Blackwater has operated in Iraq and Afghanistan, the company increasingly has its sights set on deployments inside of the United States. Blackwater setting up a new facility in Illinois, another one in California. I was in New Orleans in the aftermath of Hurricane Katrina, and I saw Blackwater mercenaries speeding up and down the streets in unmarked cars, heavily armed with M4 machine guns, flak jackets, other weapons strapped to their legs. And when I talked to the Blackwater guys on the ground and asked them what their mission was in New Orleans, they said they were there to confront criminals and stop looters. To have mercenary companies which have operated in Iraq, Afghanistan, and elsewhere in the war on terror, essentially declaring themselves above any effective laws, now deploying on the streets of U.S. cities, should be seen as an ominous threat.
Luckily, President Obama is helping us gain even more regulation over Blackwater, and hopefully in the future our spending will be limited. And that's all I have to say. I'm Nick Ball, and this is my report on Blackwater.